We're going to review adding and subtracting integers. Now, we've talked about this in class in terms of thinking of adding and removing balloons as an analogy. But the most important thing with adding and subtracting integers is to first find your numbers, and then you look in between the two numbers and see, is there two operations there? If there is, we circle them and we figure out what the combined operation is going to be. Let's write down some information to help us with that combined operation idea. So first of all, if I look in between the two numbers in my sum and I see that I've got a plus followed by a minus, then I'm going to circle them. And according to my analogy, a plus followed by a minus means adding weight. If I add weight, something gets heavier. So it's going to go down. So that means a plus followed by a minus turns into a minus. That's my combined operation. The next one, if I have an equation where I've got a plus followed by another plus, so I look between my two numbers and I see two pluses right next to each other, I'm going to circle them and think a plus followed by another plus means adding balloons. If I add more balloons, I have more buoyancy, so I'm going to be pushed up. So a plus followed by another plus turns into a plus. Next, if I have in the middle of my two numbers sitting right next to each other, a minus and a plus, then that's like saying I'm removing balloons. I'm popping some of my balloons. That means I don't have as much buoyancy now, so I'm going to start coming down. So a minus followed by a plus turns into a minus. Last scenario, if I have a minus followed by a minus in the middle of my equation, I will circle those, and my analogy says that means I'm removing weight. If I remove weight, I get lighter. So that means I start going up because I've taken some things out. Let's say of my hot air balloon carriage, I've taken some things out, so it's going to start going up. So a minus followed by a minus is a plus. Good. We've got our rules there. Now let's work through the process of answering some of these sums. First thing I'm going to do when we see a sum is look for the numbers in the sum. You can see I've got 3 and 6. Next, I'm going to look in between those numbers and see, do I have two operations sitting right next to each other? In this case, I do. So I'm going to circle them. I've got a plus followed by a minus. Then I'm going to look up the top at my rules to see what does it turn into if I've got a plus and a minus. I can see that right here. A plus followed by a minus turns into a plus. Sorry, a plus followed by a minus turns into a minus. So that's going to be a minus. And then I'm going to rewrite that as 3 minus 6. Okay, 3 take away 6. I know that's going to go into the negatives, so I'm going to draw out a little number line to help me. And you can use the number line on the mini whiteboards if you need. I start at 3, and then I'm minusing 6. When I minus, I go down or to the left by 6 because I'm taking away 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I end up at -3. There's my answer. Okay. Let's have a go at doing the next one. First step, I have to find my numbers. I can see I've got 12 and 5. Then I look in between those numbers and see, do I have two operations sitting right next to each other? If I do, I'm going to circle them, which I can see I do, and then think, what are they going to turn into? I'll look at the top to see my rules. Okay, I've got a minus and a plus right next to each other. Minus and a plus is right here. Minus and a plus turns into a minus. So that means I can rewrite this as 12 minus 5. Now I can do that on my number line, or I can just think in my head, 12 take away 5. Let's do it on the number line for today. I'm going to put 12 because that's the highest I'm going to get to. And I'm taking away 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I end up at 7. Is it positive 7 or negative 7? It's positive 7 because I haven't gone down below 0 yet. Okay, next question. Remember, first we look for our two numbers. I've got a 2 and a 6. Then I look in between those numbers and see, do I have two operations sitting right next to each other? I do. I have a minus and a minus sitting right next to each other. Let's look at the top to see what that will turn into. Here we go. A minus followed by a minus turns into a plus. I'm now going to rewrite that equation as just 2 plus 6. Okay, so a minus followed by a minus turns into a plus according to my integer rules. And that's just 2 plus 6 now. I can do that in my head. Let's start with the bigger number. 6 plus 2, 6, 7, 8. There we go. Okay, let's go down and try a scenario where you don't necessarily have two symbols in the middle. So, I can see in this question down here, I've got -1 plus 4. So first, I need to find my numbers. I've got 1 and 4. Then I look in between my numbers and see, do I have two operations sitting right next to each other? No, I just have the one operation, which is this plus. So I don't need to think about what's my combined operation. It's just a plus. So therefore, my question is just saying -1 plus 4. I'm ready to go straight to my number line. I start at -1 and then I add 4, which means I go up by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I end up at 3. Okay, have a go at doing those questions. Remember, first find your numbers. Next, look in between the numbers. And if there's two operations sitting right next to each other, circle them and use your rules to see what the combined operation is. Then you're going to rewrite the equation and solve it using your number line, okay? If you're finding it a little bit confusing as to why, for example, a minus followed by a plus turns into a minus, for example, this example here, don't worry too much about the reasoning behind it. We went through that with our analogy a little bit, but it can still be hard to get your head around. In a first instance, just use the rules, practice the questions, and then after you practice them a bit, sometimes your brain is more ready to understand where the number part is coming from, where the rule part is coming from. But in the first instance, just apply the rule and have a go at working through the process.